statements about the tongue and its being this fire. So we're moving from a general statement to particular individual ideas. And these would be your 4 preaching points right here. Now let's break this one down. Ha cosmos tes adikias, the world of unrighteousness. I'll explain this equal sign just in a moment. Then you have another nominative, the tongue, and it places itself or appoints itself in our members. Okay, let's look at this. Now, what this could be, David's has a great explanation. There are 3 different approaches to what you do with this ha cosmos te adikias. And basically, David's falls out on the third in his discussion, and he said that there's the different. I don't have time on our 10-minute tape to do this, so you go read it in David's. But let's take the third one. He said this could be either an apposition. You remember what apposition was or is? Apposition is a renaming. So in other words, the cosmos of unrighteousness equals the tongue. In other words, it's just a rephrasing of what the tongue is. Now, I put the equal mark in there because to me, I think it's apposition. Now, David's, he believes that it serves as a predicate adjective, that the phrase serves as a predicate adjective. Either way, the meaning does not change. You could argue it differently with grammar, but the meaning does not change. So whichever way you see it there, if you take the third view, you may argue for view 1 or view 2. But you have this idea that the tongue is an awful thing. It encompasses, it embodies the world of unrighteousness. He's going to explain what that means. The tongue, if you take this as a passive, you would translate it, the tongue is placed in our members. Okay? Now, if you take this as a middle, if you translate this as a middle verb, which the endings are the same in present tense, so it would be translated, the tongue places itself. Okay? Now, that's how the NIV translates it. The tongue appoints itself, and that's where that comes from, that pronoun right there. I'll mark it so you can see it. They're translating it as a middle. Okay? And just for grins, let me just pull up here, see if I can find New American Standard, see how they do it. The tongue is set. They translate it as passive. All right, so that's interesting. That shows you how 2 different committees interpreted the grammar differently. All right? So the form stays the same in present tense, but the middle passive, it takes the same ending. So you, as the interpreter, have to decide, is it passive or is it middle? Pretty interesting, huh? Okay, even committees disagree. So you can argue that either way. But then what happens next? You have 3 participles. Here's one, here's your second, and here's your third. This article governs all 3. It's kind of like the Sharp's rule of the article. At least that's what it makes me think of. You've got an article, and then you have 2 Chi's in there. So this actually rules over each of those participles. Okay? So translating it that way, they are substantival participles. So that which stains the soma, the body. All right, now the tongue is representative of a universe of evil. and it's this little small member that occurs in the whole body. Okay, so it stains the whole body. Then if you bring this article and attach it to the next participle, and that which sets fire to the course of existence. Interesting phrase, I'll come back to that. And then take your article again, and that which is set on fire, there's your passive, it is set on fire by Gehenna. Now, again, read David's on this because he'll walk you through this, where these phrases come from. But this ton trokon tes geneseos, he thinks that this is an old Orphic phrase. Now, first of all, what's Orphic? Well, it was a mystery religion. We're going back 400 to 200 BC, when the Greeks had these mystery religions, and they found in the graves of people from this time period, minus 400 to minus 200 BC, they found these Orphic tablets. And the Orphic mystery religion, if you were a member of that, they would put these tablets in your grave, and this phrase was found there, except it's a little bit different. And see if I can pull it up here. And I'm going to show you in verse 6 down here as you read. This is David's right here. And his conclusion is that Debelius thinks it's from this phrase right here, kuklos tes geneseos, and here's where it occurs, Proclus and some other writings where they explained the tablets, and they would put these tablets in the graves, and it would describe what the people were going to see when they got to the underworld. Pretty dismal thought, huh? I mean, pretty negative. But notice how James is using it. Debelius and Davids argue that this phrase, ta trokon, becomes an explanation of that old Orphic idea. So what it does, it sets on fire. The tongue is so evil, it sets on fire the very, excuse me, the very course of existence, and so it's an evil thing. In fact, it really goes along with Gehenna. Pardon me. It goes along with the fires of Gehenna, and his whole idea here in verse 6 is that the tongue is so evil that it creates destruction. And that's his point. So that's a lot of information, and you probably were wondering, what are these weird phrases, these weird sayings? And again, this will help you. So we come to verse 7 here, and he draws his point to conclusion. He said, every kind of animal, every bird, reptile, and sea creature, notice the present tense, is tamed and has been tamed by the species of man, literally by humankind. Okay? So he is saying, he's making the point, and the Greeks prided themselves in this, by the way, that everything in the animal world has been tamed. But man cannot seem to tame his tongue. And that is the point of James's argument. Let me get these up here where we can see them a little better. But not one of mankind, of men, is able to tame. Did you catch that? Dunatai is able, and here's your complementary infinitive, to tame the tongue. Notice he puts the accusative first. So why would he do that? And you know this already because he's trying to make the point that the object of this, the grammatical object, is the most important thing here. But the tongue, no one of men is able to tame. Okay? So what it does, it is akatastatan kakan. You say that, it has a rhythm to it. It is a restless evil. Akatastatan. It's restless. And not only is it restless and it's wanting to come out into all kinds of factions, and when people want to stir things up, what do? What do? We use our tongue for evil purposes. So it is a full meste eu, full of poison, but notice what kind of poison. Thanate faru. Thanate faru. I want to show you something here. This is really, really interesting. I went back and I looked this up. I wondered, here it is in the text, Thanate faru. Double click it, brings my BDAG up, and here's our James 3 and 8. It comes from combining the word death and then from the verb form pharaoh, to carry or bear, they add phoros. You see it there? Thanate phoros. And they then turn it into this adjective, and it means to deal death. Death dealing poison. Oh my goodness, what a heinous word that is. And he's saying that the tongue is full of a death-dealing poison. Whew, pretty strong language, don't you think? And then he talks about the tongue. By it we bless the Lord and Father, and by it we curse men. And then here's your participle. Now remember your grammar. You take this article. Let me mark it for you. That article modifies this participle right here. Okay? The ones who have been created according, then you pick up your prepositional phrase, according to the likeness of God. You see that? Wow. By the tongue we bless the Lord and Father, and by the tongue, by it, we curse men, the ones who are made in the likeness of God. So then I think the rest of this passage, translation-wise, you've got it. But notice what he does. He asks some rhetorical questions. He says, from a spring, from one opening in a spring, do you get sweet water and then you get bitter? Look here. Do you get the glucose, from where we get our word glucose? Do you get sweet and also pikran? Sounds like pickle to me, like sour pickles. Do you get the sweet and the sour out of the same spring? He's using the little may here, which anticipates a negative answer. No, it doesn't. In nature, it's consistent, but in man, it's inconsistent. Then, look here, he gives the last one. Is it possible, my brothers, for a fig tree, suke, to produce olives? Here's to produce, to make, your infinitive, to make olives. Or for an olive vine, figs. And the same infinitive carries over to this phrase. Or olives to make figs. Well, you're anticipating a negative answer here with may. No. And so neither does the salty make the water sweet. All right. Well, we have a great lesson here, and you can see how I put out my particular sermon, and you can make yours.